All right, so if you have employee stock options, you've probably seen these acronyms floating around, NSO and ISO. They look almost the same on paper, but when it comes to taxes, they are worlds apart. And trust me, understanding that difference is absolutely essential for your finances. Today, we're going to break down exactly what that means.
So let me just ask you straight up. Are you confident you know how each of these options hits your tax bill and, in the end, your actual wealth? Because getting this wrong, well, it can be a really expensive mistake. Okay, let's dive right in. It all starts with one simple concept, the bargain element. Just think of it as your on-paper profit the very instant you decide to exercise your options. It's the gap between what the shares are worth on the open market that day and the super low price you get to pay for them, times the number of shares you have. This little formula is key, and how the IRS taxes it is where everything changes. First up, let's talk about non-qualified stock options, or NSOs. I always think of this as the straightforward path. It's way easier to wrap your head around, but, that simplicity, it definitely comes at a price. With the NSO journey, you have two very clear moments where you get taxed. First, the second you exercise, that bargain element we just talked about gets hit with taxes. Then, way down the road when you sell, any extra profit gets taxed again, but in a totally different way. So let's break down that first step. Okay, so here's the crucial thing with NSOs. The tax hit is immediate. That bargain element is treated just like a bonus. It gets added to your income for the year and taxed at your normal everyday rate. And usually your employer just withholds the tax for you, which might mean you actually get fewer shares than you exercised for, or you have to write a check to cover that tax bill right away.
And now for tax event number 2, the sale. Your new cost for the stock is whatever it was worth on the day you exercised. Any profit you make above that price is a capital gain. And here's a pro tip. If you can hold on to those shares for more than 1 year after you exercise, you get to pay the much friendlier long-term capital gains rate.
Okay, now let's switch gears and walk down the other path, incentive stock options, or ISOs. Now this route, it's definitely more complex, but it's called an incentive for a reason. It dangles this carrot of some pretty significant tax rewards, but only if you navigate the maze perfectly. And right off the bat, here's the massive, jaw-dropping benefit of ISOs. When you exercise, that bargain element is not considered regular income. That means zero ordinary income tax is due right then. Sounds amazing, right?
And it is. It can be incredible. But there's always a but, isn't there? And this is probably the single biggest but in the entire world of stock options. This beautiful tax benefit comes with a giant potential trap. And that trap has a name, the Alternative Minimum Tax, or AMT. The easiest way to think about it is like a shadow tax system that runs alongside the regular one. And in the world of the AMT, that ISO bargain element is counted as income. If it's big enough, it can trigger a huge tax bill in the year you exercise, even though you haven't sold a single share or seen a dime of cash. This is, without a doubt, the #1 landmine for ISO holders. So how do you get the reward? How do you actually get the good part? You have to aim for something called a qualifying disposition. It's just a fancy term for selling your shares in the exact right way to unlock that special tax treatment ISOs were designed for.
And to pull it off, you have to follow 2 strict, non-negotiable timing rules. You must sell your shares at least 2 years after they were first granted to you, and at least 1 year after you exercise them. You have to do both. If you check both those boxes, your entire profit, all the way from your strike price to your sale price, gets taxed at that favorable long-term capital gains rate. That's the grand prize.
Okay, so we've walked both paths. Now let's put them side by side. It's time for the showdown, where we can really see the trade-offs between simplicity and trying to optimize your taxes.
Look, if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. It all comes down to what happens at exercise. With an NSO, boom, you pay ordinary income tax, plain and simple. With an ISO, you get to skip that. But you absolutely have to keep an eye out for that AMT monster lurking in the shadows. Let's just run down the scorecard here. Tax at exercise, that's a definite yes for NSOs and a no but for ISOs. That but leads right to the next line, AMT risk. For NSOs, nope, doesn't exist. For ISOs, oh yeah, it's a major risk, a huge one. Tax at sale, both can get capital gains treatment, but with ISOs, you have that shot at getting favorable rates on the entire gain. And all of this leads to the final trade-off, complexity. NSOs are just simpler. ISOs demand much more careful planning.
So after all that technical stuff, let's bring it all back home. Let's talk about the only question that really matters. What does this actually mean for you and your financial plan? At the end of the day, it just boils down to a fundamental choice. NSOs give you simplicity and certainty. You pay your tax up front. Often it's just taken care of for you, and you know exactly where you stand. ISOs, on the other hand, offer the potential for big tax savings, but you earn that potential through careful, sometimes complex, planning around things like the AMT and those holding periods.
So you see, there's really no single better option here. You can't just ask which one is better. An NSO might be absolutely perfect for someone who just wants simplicity, while an ISO could be an incredible wealth-building tool for someone who's ready to do some more sophisticated tax planning. It all comes down to your personal situation.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Knowing the trade-offs now, the choice between upfront certainty versus the potential for long-term savings, which of these tax journeys really fits your own financial goals and, frankly, your tolerance for complexity? Because understanding that is the real first step to making smart decisions with your equity.